everybody, it's Anna. I just wanted to share some thoughts that have come up for me on this Sunday evening. My husband's a pastor, as I've shared before, and I'm also an ordained minister, but he's the one serving a church right now. And I visited his Sunday school class this morning, and they're talking about the book of Revelation, which many people interpret as being a prediction of how God is going to violently end the world. And a lot of people in this class hold that perspective. So my husband always focuses on the fact that God is loving, unconditionally loving. But you can't really hold that belief and also believe that God's going to violently end the earth, right? So my husband keeps saying, God is loving, and people are saying in the class are saying, well, yeah, God is loving, but there are limitations to God's love. So really, God's love is not actually unconditional. It's conditional. And there is a point at which God says, enough is enough, and at that point, you either go to hell or the world ends violently. So they're talking about the Revelation. And someone mentions the flood story. And that's the story from the Hebrew text in which God does look at the world and goes, oh man, these people are so bad. They're so corrupt. I'm just going to wipe them all out. And God sends the flood. But God saves one righteous man, Noah, who builds the ark, and his people get on the ark, his family gets on the ark, and the animals get on the ark, and they're all saved. But only one righteous. Everybody else was bad. So my daughter is in this class, and she's 14. She's very scientifically minded. And she looks at me and says, Mom, that doesn't make any sense. Like, she's thinking, like, literally, how can, one boat save all the people and all the animals? And I whisper under my breath so I don't interrupt the class. I said, well, it's not literal. It's a figurative story. It's a lesson. It teaches us something about God. It's not literally what happened. The Bible's not history. It's story and it's lesson. And she says, well, what does the story of the flood teach us about God? And I told her, I said, it engages the angst human beings have about not being lovable. And the way I went into that with her, and the way I've kind of worked with in my own mind, is I also have an 11-year-old son who's a perfectionist, and he wants to never, ever, ever make a mistake. And he's young, so he's got a very black and white idea of what's good and what's bad. And when he makes a mistake, he's like, I'm all bad. I need to be punished severely. I don't deserve to be here. He goes into this very dark place. And one day he was telling me how badly he should be punished for something. And I said, you know what? That's the reason 11-year-olds aren't parents. Because you would not be a good parent. Because you've had no time to develop any compassion or perspective or kindness. You're still very stuck in this rigid black and white idea of things. I, though, am 44. And I am a good parent. And I do have that perspective. And above all else, I know unconditional love for my kid. So I was telling him, it's a good thing you're not your own parent. It's a good thing I'm your parent because I am a better parent than you. And I love you. And so my grace and my unconditional love, he is slowly learning to trust that. He still believes in his mind that he's probably really bad, but he's starting to believe me when I say, you're bigger than your mistakes. You're so much more beautiful. Even if you made 1,000 mistakes, there is no way I would never find you so amazing and so beautiful. And my love for you would not be complete. And I think that's what the Noah story, the flood story, is engaging. This angst that we have as young believers that, boy, we really are a mess. We can't get this right. I keep screwing up here. We judge ourselves, we judge others, and we think it's such a big mess. There's no way we can be lovable. We should just be wiped out. So in the flood story, God takes on the persona, right, of that young black and white perspective of morality, which is what my 11-year-old has. And does wipe out the world, right? And if you stop right there in the story, you'll say, yeah, well, that's the limit of God's love. We just proved that God's love is conditional. But if you read through to the end, you discover what's really important about the story, in my opinion. And that is God destroys the world. And then afterwards, God says, wow, that was wrong. God repents of what God has done and says, I will never do that again. So God does not justify it. God condemns it. God commits genocide and then says, that is never okay, and I will never do it again, which challenges our human belief that we are hopeless, or that some people are hopeless, or some people deserve to be wiped out. If God says God cannot stand in judgment in that way, then neither can we. And that's what's so fascinating about theology. depending on how you read it, how you interpret it, it either stagnates you or it evolves you. So if you read the first part of the flood story and you say, see, there's a limit to God's love, then you've just stagnated yourself. You've just agreed to what you already thought was true, which is that we're kind of nasty and wretched and we don't really deserve to be loved. And you're more confirmed in that opinion. Or you read all the way to the end and you say, oh, God was wrong. And therefore, when I make that judgment about myself or others, I am wrong. It is never okay. Genocide of self or others is never okay because human beings are powerful and creative and always available for evolution and shifting. And so it's never okay to cut that off before it's time. You know, I was thinking about how I do feel like I have unconditional love for my kid, but I still hit blocks, right? There are times when I lose my cool and I get scared and I get angry, right? But I don't define myself as a parent by those blocks. Instead, I define myself as unconditionally loving. And when I find the blocks, I get them out of my way because that's how I read theology. Theology is about unconditional love. And when something stops me from being unconditionally loving, I don't say, well, that's just how I am. I say, that doesn't belong here. It's like being on a highway and you come to a point, there's a boulder in the road. You don't go, oh, I guess there's no more road. No, you go, hey, that boulder doesn't belong here. There's plenty more road for me to travel on. Get the boulder out of the way and continue on your way. So theology either tells you the boulder belongs there and you're just stuck, or it tells you, get that boulder out of your way. It is not okay to be stuck here. It's not okay to settle for this. You commit all the way to your best self. And when something stops you, you take care of it and keep moving. So that's my message for this Sunday evening. I hope it's helpful to you. Please feel free to leave a comment, and I'll talk to you soon.